United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First item on the agenda is the fire department acceptance and expenditure of unrestricted funds from the governor's office for emergency relief and recovery. To go for the amount of $50,000. We use the same information that we had last meeting. And we have to hold a public hearing due to the amount being over $10,000. So, I guess what we need is a motion.
Open the public hearing.
Leave it over for 15 minutes.
Yeah, and we have to leave it open for 15 minutes, yep.
I'll make that motion, Mark.
Okay.
I'll second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
So, anybody have anything to talk about on that? We're gonna leave it open for 15 minutes.
We can, yeah. We'll just have to keep track of time.
So it's, so it'll be 5:16. Okay. Second item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the meetings. For 5/9/22. I was looking over and
They were
anything, they look good.
Yeah.
I made one minor addition to amendment to it, which
Okay.
we can fix, so I'll move that we accept the minutes
I'll second.
as amended.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
So all set with that. Town managers updates?
Yes, I have one to you, and again, I apologize, I put that on here as a title, but I handed you some things tonight. This is kind of an ongoing discussion that we had from a couple of meetings ago, where the New Hampshire Bureau of Trails has come in and identified some areas of the trail that there are some problems in Littleton. This tonight is specific to the trail access that has been historically used across from, I'm going to say the business, is it called Hammerdown?
Yeah.
Where off-road vehicles have accessed the trail up to that point across from them. The state has advised us from that point down, and if you're looking at the map, you can see where I've got a black line
Yep.
drawn,
Okay.
and then down here just past Burndy Road is a section of the trail that they're saying that off-road vehicles are prohibited from being on because it was purchased with transportation enhancement funds, and so they are going to be taking a strict position of shutting off access to vehicles Memorial Day. I've internally met with the chief of police and the fire chief and Doug about what, if anything, might be an alternative. I have not been approached by the business owners, so I don't know what their intent is, and we did get emails today, which I handed out to you, from gentleman Matt, I think it's Champagne. Yes, and so at least being a member of an HOV, that's their organization, we call it.
It's the Music Valley.
Music Valley ATV Club, yes. As addressed, they know that there's going to be a problem, so what I'm asking or proposing, you can't vote tonight or, make a final decision, but one would be to consider making a portion of Industrial Park Road from where they access the trail now down past Burndy Road, where there is another access point, which you can kind of see on the map, which the state says they're okay with that.
Down here.
Yeah, down here. It's kind of like now there would have to be some improvement and whatever that would be done on there, but that is an access point that vehicles can, and then they can go to the trail south, but that would be their exit point. There are some concerns, public safety on the roads. And I think involving the email that came in today, it even took it a step further and was potentially looking at even accessing north where the black line is going up to Cottage Street. So vehicles could access the gas stations or the stores, similar to what you see in the wintertime with the snowmobiles. But the discussion I had with police and fire and Department of Public Works was, what's the process if, the town were to allow usage of those vehicles off-road through the section of the road. And what I'm told is that pursuant to RSA 215A-15, we have to do a duly noticed public hearing, advertised 14 days in advance in the city or town, notification to abutters by verified mail, and the Board of Selectmen may authorize the use of sidewalks or Class 4, Class 5, or Class 6 highway and bridges or portions thereof for use by OHRBS. Again, there are some concerns in talking with public safety. They would potentially be open to maybe what you would call a trial period, if the board were open to it. And again, you're not voting tonight, okay? But if that were the concept, that if it were allowed, it may be done for a summer and see what the impact is, see what kind of things we run into, see if there are issues that occur, because there's all kinds of issues on if people start parking on the side of the road and where now they're pretty much contained. If we go a little further into the email, they're asking for potential use of Burndy Road, which I think was discussed sometime before I came on board, involving trails and what have you in terms of there, because I think there's a piece of property that is owned by the business owner back there. What I have done is I've reached out to Walter Mitchell, just asking for a draft, of an ordinance or what would be required, if you were to consider it. But other than that, I haven't done anything further in the sense of pushing him or setting dates or doing anything in reference to public hearing without some discussion here on even one, is there even a feeling that we should address it, or it's not our concern, it's a private business concern.
Let's start out with, this was usable for them 2 years ago because there were no grants involved. The rails were still in. From the whistle pylon between the interstate bridges up through. When that got taken up with that grant, it changed the perspective for the way that trail could be used. So they've still been using it, but the grant people said no. So I don't know how they're expecting to go all the way to Cottage Street when we've already got the grant and it's done. Do they make exceptions?
Oh, no, they wouldn't. No, you would have no vehicles allowed through Littleton.
No.
This isn't going up Cottage, this isn't going up past the Railroad Trail Village. This is strictly the access point across from Hammerdown south. So this would never open the trail. Well, I'm not saying people would go on it.
You're talking to Cottage Street.
No.
Meadow Street. He misspoke earlier. He was talking about UTVs granted access to Meadow Street like the snow machines are in the winter. They can ride the opposite way down the roadway, which is an unsafe condition, and they can cross the Meadow Street unsafely, not utilizing the intersection. So that's what he was saying was Meadow Street.
Okay.
If I said Cottage, I apologize. Yeah, no, this isn't opening up anything going through town. This is strictly dealing with the fact that where his business is presented, and people historically access it, they're not going to be able to. And, there's pros and cons. There's an impact maybe to local business, but I don't know, since I've not been on, the trail, and I don't know what kind of business. I know that you have an issue in other communities. Sometimes push and shove between off-road vehicles on roads, so in Berlin and Gorham and other communities. I've done that. Doug sent me an email today. He was in Lisbon over the weekend, and it looks like they've taken a section of their road and designated it for off-road, and actually even painted blue lines, kind of creating a little lane, even parking spots for them. And again, I'm not saying what we should or shouldn't do, but I wanted to be a little bit proactive so that an issue comes up and the business owner can say we at least look at options.
There is no shoulder of the road to run down on the industrial park road. This guide road right to the blacktop. Tractor trailers, I'm not comfortable with it. Just my own personal,
That's why I'm bringing it to you
Yeah.
to discuss before we
Yeah.
go further with it, because it's not for me to try to solve something. A
Right.
problem that is not something, if it creates
Yeah.
another problem, or it's not something that you all want. Okay, so.
anybody?
Let me ask a question.
Sure.
So there's nowhere north or east of Littleton to get to southwest of Littleton with an ATV?
My understanding is no, from this point in Littleton, straight out through the town limits, no off-road vehicles are allowed on that portion of the rail trail. So you can't so if you can access it north, I guess you have to do it in Bethlehem or further north?
The rails aren't up there, so there's no access.
Okay.
They use snow machine trails off-season?
Snowmobiles are permitted on there, but there's
Right,
no wheel
but
vehicle.
during the summer, when the snow machines aren't using their trails, the ATVs use those trails, am I correct, or am I wrong?
No, they should.
I don't do either one,
Right.
so I don't know.
It's a separate thing where the snowmobiles have landowner permission and built the trail systems, and
Okay.
a lot of people don't want the wheel vehicles on their property because of tearing up the sod and erosion. And
So the only thing, I just want to make sure I wrap my head around what they're requesting. They're requesting that they use our streets to get access to go south only
Yes.
at
because-
this point.
Yes, because the part where I blocked off, that section of the trail was purchased with some kind of, I think, federal
Right.
transportation
Right.
enhancement
That,
dollars.
that piece I
Yeah,
understand.
So yeah, they're looking for an access point to the trail that still allows maybe this to be viable for parking and staging and what have you. But again, it does open some concerns.
My concern would be the industrial park road because it is so narrow.
it's
And
narrow,
there's
and
so
there's
much traffic on
trailers,
it as it
loading
is,
trucks.
and there's not a whole lot of,
Even the Barney Road, same way.
yeah,
Tractor
I haven't been
trailers.
up Burnby Road in a long time, so.
Could we maybe check with Chief?
Yeah, your thoughts, Chief?
And my thoughts are kind of a fairness thing, looking at the overall big picture of what we allow in the winter and what we allow in the summer. There's always a fear of something new, certainly from my perspective when it comes to public safety. However, in this particular area, we have allowed the snow machines to travel down the side of the roadway, actually utilizing the roadway and narrowing the roadway for many years. From the, what's that?
Whereabouts?
The bridge?
On the bridge?
Across the bridge, and then not even utilizing the intersection, bypassing the intersection and just crossing Meadow Street without any traffic control. Same with down by Dell's Road, they just fly up across. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm saying that we've allowed this condition to occur. Those streets are much busier. So then, what our suggestion was, with a firm understanding of probably looking at this with a sunset date, so we could reevaluate, look at, if we had any traffic complaints, if we had any accidents or anything like that. And then you as a board could reevaluate it. But quite frankly, the speed limit's the same. The visibility is similar. With these vehicles, they would be riding on the correct side of the roadway, not the opposite side of the roadway like with the snow machines. And it's a very finite area. Burnby Road, as a matter of fact, has less traffic than the Industrial Park Road. So our recommendation was that, as we looked at this, was perhaps looking at it with a sunset date to see if there are complaints, to see if we've created a condition that we don't want to continue. And by doing so, you can do it with a sunset date, but at least let it go to a hearing so we could hear some public input. But it is new. But they would have to travel on the correct side of the road and follow the rules of the road, which they're mandated to do under state statute.
Okay, thank you.
It's kind of like having a wonderful piece of land, but no way to get to it. So with a business, great business, but no way to get to it.
So if there was a request, it would be a consensus to go forward with an ordinance and a public hearing for that input, or that you're concerned about it, and I'm done with it tonight. I mean, you know, in the sense of that, I've done what I'm supposed to, is bring an issue, and if there isn't a resolution to it, there isn't always a resolution to every problem.
I think we should come up with some sort of alternative.
Yeah,
That's
I
my,
agree
that's
with
my
that.
thought,
I
yeah.
do agree with that. We need to work on something to allow that type of activity.
All right, well then, broader consensus at least to bring something back for debate purposes. Yeah, nobody's voting tonight, nobody's
Right.
approving anything tonight. You
Yeah.
can't by law. But I'll go ahead then and get the ordinance worked out, we'll check with both public safety, and then we'll coordinate the dates and what have you.
Did you get a response back from Walter on?
They're pulling up some data, because I told them it should be a hard thing to do, it's not really many years.
Right.
You have to find it, there's enough towns that have done this,
Right.
just to define a section, so, but I told them, don't do a whole lot until I have the meeting, because I don't want to run up legal bills.
Right.
So do you have a motion to
Yeah.
move forward? All right, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I'll keep you informed, and we'll notify you of the dates and time, when we've done all the process.
It's 5:16.
I think,
Okay,
yeah,
5:16.
yeah.
So I guess we could take a vote on that. Actually, we voted on that last, correct? We need to vote on it.
Yeah, you still vote on it again, because it's in the public hearing portion, we'll need a motion.
Do we need a motion for the,
I'll make a motion to accept an expenditure of $50,000 from the Governor's Office of Emergency Relief and Recovery. Vicki, I know you'll make me sound good. I'll make that motion.
okay,
I'll second it.
all those in favor?
Aye.
That is closed now. Okay, old business. Finance Department, to sign the borrowing documents for the rail lease and the public works 1.5-ton truck.
Roger, real quick, Lori's gonna need signatures
Yeah, and I'll,
for that motion.
and I'll highlight this, you know,
Okay.
at a previous meeting, we brought you a list of, lending institutions. And that New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank ended up being a much higher rate when it came down, so the
Mascoma.
Mascoma was the second with the lowest rate. So while technically you voted to approve it and even to go with the lowest rate, but we want to come back with now that we're official with Mascoma, with your vote and then your authorization to sign the documents tonight, so we're going to initiate.
Okay,
So you need a
we
motion?
need a motion on that.
Okay. I make a motion that we go with New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank,
No, that's
No,
right.
Mascoma Bank.
Yes, Mascoma Bank for 2.95% for the financing approved on the 3/8/2022 ballot for the lease purchase of portable and mobile radios under Article 4 and the bond for the truck under Article 8.
All right, I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
So I have lots of papers for you to sign, so I
Yep.
just like to pass them if you can just
Yep.
back them to the end.
Yep.
Yep.
I'll look after. So the first one is, and I know you've already received all these in advance for reviewing. So the first one is the resolution of governing board, and there'll be 3 copies, so you'll have to sign those.
Okay.
And then the town clerk's already sealed the documents. And you want to notarize these. I'll let you make ones. Just that one.
Just that one, okay?
Same. Copy.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, this is all, it's all three of us, because we have the issue of governing board.
Okay.
So all three of us have to sign
Then
it.
she's like, you can't do this, and this is the same as you want to do it, so she likes,
Hey, you know,
she's very,
hey, bracket.
meticulous, right?
So if we don't have any, they come out and show you.
We'll be the first.
So which means I need to make sure my signature is not legible. Thanks for your support, TJ.
It's on film.
I'll remember that.
Why? She said, why?
It just keeps coming.
This is as bad as signing a mortgage papers. Carrie's signature will still be open.
Can you hear us chatting?
No, that's what I was checking.
Okay. Yep.
Because to respect government, and she was like, oh, there's a few, yeah, there is. That's why we try to get everything under a certain amount, and we try to reduce it, so that way we don't have to do it by vote. But apparently, if it's by vote, you have to.
Where do the laws of this one?
Well, this is a law, right?
This one.
So it was the, and she pulled up what I'm saying, she said, this type of lease, because of the way it's being financed and what was voted in, requires the
For the last
vote,
one,
just
just
signature of the board. Because there are other ones that do
last
not
one.
release or whatever. The way she explained it to me, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense. At first I was like, because he can authorize, because she said it's because it's within your budget. She said, so we had this question. Because I had a meeting with her this time. But she showed me the RSA, and I'm like, oh, well, that looks good. So at first I thought she was something.
Lori, thank you for your hard work.
So that's all right.
You all set?
It's just finishing up that.
Good. Wait till you get back into this right.
But it's okay for the snow machine. That's okay. There's no, I'm gonna have to
Okay. Next on the agenda, Opera House.
Yeah, the Opera House has received $7,040 of donations towards First Friday. For state statute, it requires the Board of Selectmen to accept the funds and then authorize Adam to use them towards First Friday.
Do you want a motion?
Yeah, I need a
All right,
motion.
I'll make a motion that we give Adam the authority to accept and expend the $7,040 for the first Friday night art celebration festival.
June 3rd.
Well, it's
It'll be for all three.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
starts on June 3rd. I'll second that.
All those in favor?
fine.
Aye.
Okay, next on the agenda is the Friends of Granite Park.
This is similar but a little different. They had a warrant article, Article 44, that passed for $30,000 to remove and dispose of the condemned Friendly Park gazebo and replace with a pavilion. Traditionally, when a warrant article passed, town would write the check and send it to them, but because this involved town property and a town item, I wanted to come back through the board one last time, so you get updated on the gazebo is down, been completely demolished and removed down to its base, so the next step would be expanding the foundation base and then doing the pavilion as pictured attached. I've got Caitlin here if she's got any comments or anything to add.
Yeah, I have Dave Cronin and Vivian Haney from Northern Builders. They're
Nice to meet you.
generously offered to donate their labor in building our pavilion, as well as Casella donated the 30-yard dumpster for a week, and Eric, Patrick, and Georgia took that down. We've gotten quotes for concrete work through Everett Douse. Dave Crines helped with getting Dodge Contracting to do the excavation, so that's the next step, is tearing down that base, laying it down with gravel. He's only charging for materials, which is around $1,000. And then Jeff Stone at Lowe's has really offered to give us a good discount with materials for Dave to build the pavilion, so we're looking at around $13,000 right now. We want to, obviously, that's not anywhere near the 30. We have options for adding electrical, lighting, maybe even bringing in a water fountain, but keeping that, expanding the options there. So, yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions. Chris is here. He's the president of Friends of Granite Park.
So you didn't use any of the money to take the building down?
No, I mean, yeah, so when I had originally written that warrant article, after talking to Jim, it was the town's responsibility for the demo, and the way I written it wasn't exactly in line with that, but yeah.
Okay.
Yep, correct.
Is it okay to ask a few questions?
Sure.
So it'll be in the same location?
Correct,
Okay.
yep.
All right. The other question I had, so it's going to be more like a pavilion style?
Yeah, it'll be a bigger base. We have
Okay.
the Pentagon.
So you see
Yeah,
that picture that you have right
yeah.
there of the pavilion?
Yeah.
So the only, can I just see it real quick? Yeah, so she drew that, and there's, we had another
Yeah.
post right there.
Okay.
Basically, they grew a little bit bigger from 24 by 24 to a
Okay.
30 by 30.
Oh,
So structurally, we needed to add another post for carrying purposes,
all
So it's
right.
gonna be what size again?
30 by 30.
30 by 30.
Yeah.
Okay. And as far as the concrete, that's not wet there, is it? Because I'm just thinking as far as the frost or, you know, it heaving.
So we, I got Sean Dodge coming over. We're actually dropping my excavator there tonight.
Okay.
I believe he went and grabbed one of my sites. You know, I'm sure you guys all know Sean. You know, he's very good at what he does. We'll assess the situation, and I think the 2 loads of crushed stone he's gonna bring in will alleviate any of those issues.
Okay.
So I don't believe it's wet anyways. but-
Yeah, I didn't think so.
When you look at the gazebo now, to the left of it, I know it gets very wet in the spring,
Mhm.
but it doesn't filter down to where the gazebo is, I
Right.
don't believe.
Yeah.
So worst case scenario, we put some type of French drain on the perimeter if we need to.
All right.
It'll definitely be done correctly for sure.
And is that, I know it says it's gonna be poured in 2 slabs.
So it's not gonna be like that anymore, right? We're not.
He had said 2 pours is what I read.
2 pours.
told me, But,
For the expansion joints in the center of that for frost, in
Right.
case something does happen.
Right, I mean, if we get important to pours, we typically, on the house foundations, we will cut expansion joints into it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've got a couple more questions. Do you have a completion date on the pavilion being done?
As soon as we can, really, as soon as David and Sean can get over there and start it. I mean, the original goal was by the July 4th celebration, which is 7/1. I mean, the first concert in the park is June 24th, so as soon as possible. We're further along than I anticipated, which I'm very excited about, so yeah, I'm just gonna keep crushing it.
I can tell you on my end, we'll have it ready for July 1st, as long as the concrete's poured.
Awesome, all right.
And you're putting a metal roof on it?
Yes, ma'am.
How are you gonna deal with the snow coming off the edges if there are people there?
That's a very good question. I mean, I haven't really given it a whole lot of thought, but I didn't think you guys were gonna be using it in the winter time, are you?
No, but there's a lot of people that utilize the park during the winter
Right.
with dogs and kids and what all else.
So it's gonna have eaves on the sides, so it could be as simple as just roping off part of that, putting up some stakes in the rope for the winter,
For the winter.
put up a
Okay.
sign.
Right.
Anything in the park is kind of play at your own risk, it happens on houses. And it's two entire sides that are like that, so I don't see there being an issue with that. It's a pretty simple.
But you need to remember the liability issue, because just because it's use at your own risk, you get somebody that
Maybe I should use
doesn't
some-
understand how a metal roof works and how a snow load can let go at any moment, if they don't understand that concept.
So, I mean,
It's like probably 1 in a million
right.
that something like that might happen, and I just, roping it off is probably the wisest and the best way to do that for the winter. Yeah.
It would obviously cost a little bit more money, but if we needed to, we could climb into the roof and shingle it. It's not the end of the world.
But they do have,
cleats on it.
We
they
could
do
put
have
all
snow
that-
brakes.
Right, I was gonna say, we're gonna put, regardless, I think we should put some of the snow brakes on there.
Snow brakes.
So when it
Yeah.
does come down, it breaks it up at least.
Right.
It's not hitting you with one big chunk.
And that pitch doesn't look that pitchy. My
Right.
roof is straight down. It
No.
feels like a freight
It's gonna be,
train.
it's gonna be an 8 pitch, so I mean, it's not like it's
What's the pitch?
an 8
8
pitch,
pitch,
but it's
okay.
not like it's gonna come like flying
Right.
down like a 12 pitch or something,
Right.
you know?
Okay, all right. That was just, I saw the metal, I love the
That's a
idea of the
great
metal
question.
roof, it's gonna be easy.
Yeah, maintenance wise,
Maintenance,
yeah.
yeah. But,
Never replace it.
Yeah,
then-
that's what I'm happy about.
yeah, but then you've got to think, and then, one last question, the concerts that we normally have in the park, are those gonna start up again?
Yep, on the June 24th is the first concert. Dave had a good point on that. I mean, vision wise, he wanted to bring it up to a 10 or 12 foot post, so it's easily able to see up front where the
Right.
gazebo didn't provide that.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah. Well, it's easier access too, because it's on a flat.
exactly. Yep.
Thank you for all your work.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks
I think
for
it's
the
gonna be nice
volunteers.
going
That would help
forward.
out for sure.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Do we need a motion or
I'm not
anything?
sure of the action because it was a warrant article, but maybe just for the record, maybe a motion to approve expenditure of $30,000 per Article 44 for the gazebo.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Deal. Thank you.
We're back in business.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night, huh?
Thank you.
I got your purse with it.
Next thing is the approval of the capital improvement plan, 22 to 26.
They did supply.
Is it in here?
Not sure. Partially with what's going on in the economics and the request and information that they were probably looking for just came in. I think that came in late last week,
It should be in there.
but it should be.
It should be in your
For the
packet.
police department.
I don't know if it's in the actual edited document. I don't know. This is what this is.
The painting estimate's on the last page of the CIP.
No, it's not in the chart.
It's the second, it's the last page all by itself.
Second to last page all by itself.
It should be the last page.
There was a
Second to
second,
last page is the one I want.
Page.
check the last page, there was a second attachment. Print off.
I don't have it.
That's the attachment you received.
Oh, yeah, almost.
No.
It was a second attachment.
Yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't get that.
Is it just a payment?
Yeah, it's just the payment
painting.
estimate. Yeah.
No, it's not in here. This is not in here.
I mean, you're gonna see some gaps in the charts just because of the economic conditions, trying to get bids, trying to get materials. Those numbers that we have, obviously, they've been working for over the last 8 months. If you've gone those the last 8 months, you know it's a little bit different. So, those aren't, you know, even the numbers that are in the charts, I don't really bind in. I mean, they're general numbers, but it gives you an idea, perspective, of what they're looking for in the future.
You need this back?
No, you can keep it. I can copy.
Any questions, Karen?
I don't, well, actually, I do have some questions, but not in regard to the painting estimate.
Sure.
So you'll need a motion to approve this or to accept?
To accept?
To accept
Yeah,
the
to
CIP
accept.
plan, okay. All right, I do have, some questions later on though.
On this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
This is my first involvement in an outside organization doing the capital improvement plan, but I understand that's part of New Hampshire statute. Capital improvement plan is a planning document, so tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, so if you accept this tonight, you're not necessarily voting for every item
Correct,
that's on here.
correct.
It's a planning document, and then we would use at budget time
Yes,
to
correct.
try to put them in the years, or sometimes things get changed around in case things come up. So approval of the document isn't expending funds, it's just approving it as a planning document for us as we work into the 22, 23.
Yeah, we
23
would
budget.
not be approving it, we would just be accepting it
Accepting.
from the planning
Yes.
board
Direction there.
as an additional documentation for budgeting purposes.
Excellent work.
Thank you. You can
Was
quote
that a
me-
motion?
You can quote me on that.
The only
Go ahead.
question I have,
Yeah.
on page 13, it says Lakewood Elementary, we need to change that to Lakeway, in 2 different areas.
Okay.
I missed that.
I know, I'm kind of shocked. We all have our special issues in our own.
The other question I have is on the library, it has roofs and cornices,
Cornices.
okay. What is a cornice?
Something goes additionally with the roof,
Goes over
Yeah.
the,
the little edges probably.
yeah.
You know, so you have the roof and then you have a little edge,
Okay,
false roof. We could probably look out the window.
And this one is actually already approved this year, and there was a warrant article.
There was a warrant.
yeah, I knew that, I just
Want to know what it,
It could,
Yeah.
what's a cornice, yeah, all right.
You gonna Google it?
So I'd say overhang to
decorated
cover it up.
project. It's the decorated pieces along the
Yeah.
roof
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Vicki.
and the eaves.
Anything else?
I think that's all I had as far as questions.
Yeah, I, just going over it, the numbers are overwhelming to make this.
Well, it's a good exercise, and a good exercise, it also has transparency. What I like about this is the fact that anyone can go to the town office right now and look at this, and they can forecast where their taxes might be stressed out over a couple of years. So the idea is to have something, so it's not a shock all at once. When they show up in February, March, and we're trying to vote for something that we had no idea about. So this kind of levels the playing field.
Yeah.
It does a great description on what's necessary, what's critical, and what is desired. I think they did a great job with that. So you can look at some of the spending, like why is this critical, and then look at the page what defines a critical item versus something that's desired or something that's necessary. So very user friendly, and that's kind of why we went with resilience once again. If I'm not mistaken, they did work on our CIP over 20 years ago.
Yeah,
So
they did.
when they did our most recent master plan. So it was a very easy process for them because they already knew the stakeholders, all the department heads. It wasn't like there was someone new coming through the door. And so all the department heads were great working with them. So it's just a great synergy. And I believe it's a great product at the end of the day. So like you said, it is a tool that is non-binding for the budgets and for folks to utilize as we move forward.
On page 12 too, I noticed with the fire department and the police department, there were some blanks left as far as priorities. Will those go back to be filled in, or, because the police department, the carpet replacement isn't necessary, but that was the only one as far as priority.
Well, the beautiful thing about this is that we can,
Yeah,
you know, there are going to be some blanks again.
Okay.
Because where we are in today's economic world, you know, I'm assuming they reached out and did the best efforts they could, like the police came in with that last second painting.
okay.
They still will have to determine, even during their own normal budgetary process, what is critical, what is necessary, and what is desired. Even though it's not written down here, it doesn't stop them from having that ability to make that presentation during the budget process and during our town meetings and whatnot. So unfortunately, this didn't make the cut this time around.
And on the pricing, I know some of this goes out to fiscal year 2027.
Yes.
Is it based on prices current?
Yeah,
So do we have some sort of?
I'm sure there was no future value
Yeah.
calculations
Okay.
in there. If your price, I mean, when they started this process, inflation was probably 2-3%, now it's at 8.5, 9. And by the time 2027 comes along, it could be back down, it's all going down,
Yeah.
within the next 22 months.
You update and review this once a year, correct?
Yeah, this is part of the master plan, part of the charge of the planning board is to review the CIP on a yearly basis. That's our number one of our charges that we have, to oversee the process. This is why it's important. But we do look at this document and the master plan on a regular basis.
The budget committee, they get this, correct?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Again, it's no different from a calculator, depends on how you want to utilize it. So it won't be a shock when you see a couple of years out that the Remick Park building or the Opera House building is coming down the road, or fire, whatever, fire station, you know, it's all right there. So anyone can have access to this and see what's going on. So even though we're starting the summertime, it's never too soon to plan ahead, because as inflation, just like everywhere else, you have to, it's between a want and a need, and you have to prioritize, and this will hopefully let people know what's coming down the road and how we're as a group trying to do the best we can for our towns.
Okay. Good, thank
Does
you.
that make sense?
Thank you for your work.
Yeah.
No, thank you. We're part of that.
So, we need a motion,
Motion to accept
accept.
the CIP from planning.
You want to make a motion? Am I okay to make a motion because I am the ex officio in the planning board? Okay. So I'll make the motion that we accept the CIP as presented, that it is just a tool for the budget committee and the board of selectmen to use for what the different departments see as needs coming down the road. And it's updated once a year or so.
Well stated. I'll second that.
Should we say with correction, just to?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
forthcoming, yes. We'll make sure our elementary school is properly.
They have a tough enough job mine doing my emails.
Yeah, but I totally missed that one, and I read these.
I'm shocked.
I read these things for you know, every
When you
word.
read it and read it and read it, eventually your eyes play with it. That's why it's always good to have a second minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all right.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tim.
You're good? I administrative. This is informational?
Yes, this is informational.
Correct.
Was actually contacted by Mark Bonta from Denver, and he's been working with other members in the industrial court, in addition to head NCIC, NCC, and LDIC. And what they're going to be requesting is the town as a sponsor to go for a planning grant that is available. I think it's up to 2 different ones, up to $50,000.
Yep.
And the purpose would be to do a complete housing assessment inventory of the housing in Littleton, what is available, you know, when it could be available,
And surrounding towns.
and surrounding communities.
It's
The reason they're-
changing daily, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is changing daily.
And in order to get the grants, they have to have a town sponsor as the lead, even though the organization ahead would be the primary.
Yeah, that would be the financial base that would take in the grants and distribute it to whoever does the inventory. But the applicant needs to be, recipient needs to be the town of Littleton, the sub-recipient as a head.
And I think, Mark, correct me, I think we learned after we put this together that we got information that there has to be a public hearing.
Yes.
Yeah, so tonight is informational.
Yep.
So we'll come back, unless there's some resistance to the town being the sponsor. There's no funds out of the town's pocket on this, but it would be us assisting. We know there's a housing issue.
Yep.
And at least this portion that we could do. So if there's not a problem on that, then we'll go ahead and gear up for the appropriate public hearing and what you need to do to approve it then.
Could I ask some questions?
Yep, go ahead.
So, maybe more of a scope, you're gonna be looking at, or this group will be looking at existing properties that can be renovated. What about raw land that could be
That
built
as well.
on?
Yeah, they're going to be
Okay.
looking at things that could be moving right now,
Okay,
or things that could be rehabbed, or possibly land to build a new development.
okay,
I mean, the idea down the road is what we'd like to do, I believe, and I'm kind of speaking for the whole industrial park. What we'd like to do is possibly secure an investor that's willing to develop with private money after the inventory to get some workforce housing. And that's why we want to kind of avoid federal funds, because we want to dedicate this for the workforce and not for just for the general public. Going after the CDFA community block grant for $25,000, matching that with the Invest New Hampshire fund at $100 million that dedicated to that. Matching that to get the whole $50,000, because it was projected that the inventory cost about $45 or so. I did want to mention too, though, that we do, I believe, I've been told that the deadline for applying for the Invest New Hampshire match is June. So we're kind of on a little bit of a tight.
June,
I don't have a date in June, but I believe Adam from the state had told me that the deadline for applying for that is sometime in June. But we do have the help of North Country Council and the CDFA that can time this correctly for us, because you have to apply for both at the same time. And Kayla Tavares from the North Country Council will be the first contact, and then she'll get with Molly Kaler from the CDFA to time the CDFA loan with the Invest New Hampshire loan at some point before that deadline's up.
So if you're okay tonight, that's what they'll be notified tomorrow and start that process.
And the next step is the public hearing.
Put this on for the next meeting.
It could be sooner based on a deadline, yeah.
Okay,
Maybe,
yeah.
and depending on timing and what have you, we may have a public hearing on a couple of things in reference to the roadway and whatever. So I mean, we'll see what the timing dates are, so we try not to have multiple meetings, so we maybe can target it, but you know, based on definitely meeting the deadline for that.
okay. So the radius, Mark, you had mentioned several towns. Are you thinking within like a 50-mile radius,
No,
25?
not that far out.
Okay.
Basically, Littleton and any town touching Littleton,
Okay.
that radius.
In price point, as far as, and I'm assuming it'd be rental, because it's workforce housing, do you have a number in mind, or is this group, the group will work on that as far as?
Yeah, we are working on that. We're actually, not to get ahead of myself a little bit, but we have a Q&A Zoom meeting on Wednesday with a investor that approached us for private development. And we are surveying our workforce's finances to see what that sweet spot is. But it's definitely, going to be something that's in the range of their salaries, of what we pay our employee salaries. Because some of the developments now that are going on, like the Hitchman's building and that project down in Bethlehem, are far beyond the reach of the salaries that we're able to pay our employees. So it's definitely going to be within that range. It's not going to be, like welfare level. It's going to be more in the range of what the salaries are, 30% of their income, basically.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
What is the average salary in Littleton for the industrial park? Do you know?
Well, I'm going to venture a guess based on our salaries, that it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 35 or so for the general workforce.
35?
About 35 a year for the general workforce.
Okay, 35 a year.
But I can't speak for all.
I'm thinking it out.
I think that's about the average. I can't really speak.
Because
for all
I know
businesses.
New England Wire, I believe.
They're the highest.
They are the
They're
higher.
the highest paying manufacturer in the area.
Yeah.
So their average is a little bit higher.
So minimum is probably 15, 12 to 15? maybe?
Some are paying less. Well, some are paying in the 12 to 15 range, yes.
Okay,
The median, I think, is about 15 to 16.
okay. All right.
So we need a motion?
I think we need a motion to
Okay.
accept that.
To have staff, go forward to work
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
North Country Council and.
Yes, the
Yeah.
Metro Council will be the first step.
Okay. I'll make that motion.
Okay, for CBDG housing inventory company, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Bob, you need a motion?
I'll second it.
Carrie, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice night.
You too, Mark.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is administrative budget report through April.
Yes, attached for you the budget year-to-date through April. I've highlighted the four departments that are currently over budget, and some of the rationale, and some of it has to do with timing of paying. So if you pay something all at once in January, it's going to show you've expended a significant portion of the budget, and it will
Yeah.
be over. But if there's no other payment for the rest of the year, it evens out in terms of that. Probably the biggest kicker is the real property appraisal, because that's still a fund item where some costs have gone into in reference to the appraisers themselves and the defense, of some of the tax abatement cases, which is above and beyond what was their normal contract work. Some of that's shown up in legal. The dues and advertising is one of those things where they're already paid up, so we're not really over budget, we just pay, we get everything. Yeah, and the same with dispatch, with Grafton County, we paid 50%, so while it shows, oh my gosh, we're over budget, we're not. And then in reference to the cemeteries, Lori has told me, it's a small amount of money that we've gone ahead and paid, for 6 months, and then there'll be a second check out. So again, that's like 50% of the year that's been paid. Overall, town-wise, the general fund is at 71.56%.
5.6 or 2.6?
5.6?
You got 2.6 on your, right here.
71.56.
Well, it is fold up here, but it's 71.56 down below.
Could be typo on me, one of those you read. So the emphasis, I guess, the point being, if it's 7126, then we are 4.26% under budget
Yeah.
as of 4/30, which is what we want to be.
Yeah.
And that increased a little bit over the March report. So even with inflation, we know that we may see an impact in reference to line items, in reference to gas, diesel, electric, all of those things like everyone else. We did budget for increases when we did the 22 budget, but I don't think anybody saw, inflation in the slightest.
Yeah.
What we're seeing now.
What do we have in place if it gets even more out of control?
Well, those are items that we have to spend. I can't park trucks, and cars, what have you. Hopefully, there are other line items, that don't always track as high. It's not like you pull from one line item and put it to another, but what I look at is individual line items are important within any department, but I also am very key on what's that final number budget. If there's a couple of line items like gas or diesel is higher, but we're still on budget or below, then that's something that we just fix going into a new budget, and there's always going to be some numbers that are a wild guess, or scientific wild guess in budgeting, on your best basis. And worst comes to worst, as the year goes on, if it reached that level that we're going to be exceeding the budget, then we have to come back to you to talk about reserves as a short-term remedy. But it would be the last thing that I hope we'd have to do. We tighten our belt anyway. Going into this budget, folks didn't get luxuries that were in there. Things were taken out, then we try to be tight, but there are always some areas, and I'll give you an example. We budget 100% for employees, but some departments aren't always at 100%. And so, for example, police and fire and public works have openings, but yet we budgeted in January as if those positions are full. So I'm not saying I want to take money out of payroll, but as Roger and I had talked earlier today, just using overtime as an example. You can look at a line item and get hung up on an item and say, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. But when it's said and done, if we're not spending it out of payroll, personnel, because we're short people, you can kind of put some lines together and say, okay, when it blends and come out, we're okay. And I think that's how we'll do this as we go through. If we get to a point where we don't have some savings and some line items, then we'll have that discussion on whether or not we need to tap reserves in order to get us through there. But let's just hope that we budgeted well enough and things don't get too crazy down the road. But we'll address whatever we need to internally first, and then we know we made all the cuts and stop and put on hold on some things. But there are certain expenses. Like I said, I can't tell Paul to park police cars and Mike to park fire truck or ambulance and telephones. Well, we exceeded our gas budget, so we can't run today. So, there are just some highlights, some things that they may be over, and we're just gonna have to live with it. Even the best budgeting, you can't foresee everything, that's out there, but the fact that we monitor it regularly, at least knows that it won't jump out ahead of us before, we know what we're facing. We'll be able to have discussions here.
If you look down here under the fire, gas and oil, 43.88% left.
Yeah. So.
And that's expected.
Yeah. So there are going to be some line items like that are there. But then if you look at the overall department,
yes,
we're still under budget.
It's under budget. Yeah. And because of some of those other things, there are other line items aren't getting expended at the level that they were budgeted.
I guess I'm just thinking too, with inflation growing, there may be other discussions we should have.
You're probably going to have a tough summer. I'm just saying now with 3 unions, fire, police, DPW, and transfer station. I think there'll probably be much different discussions this year with inflation than what we faced last year. And last year was tough enough just to get 1 year with one department. So I'm anticipating, not only do we have to keep an eye on things, but that probably gonna have to address some tough discussions as we go forward.
so that means 1 more year.
Huh?
1 more year and then go back to the following year. If you can't get anywhere, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, you know, you always go into it with the best faith,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
you know, everybody wants to be fair, everybody needs to be properly compensated, you know. I don't want somebody, you know, that can't afford to buy milk that's working in their job, and I know we don't have that, I mean, but we recognize. The only difference for us as an employer is that we don't make widgets and we don't sell products. We provide services, but those services are paid for by our taxpayers, and so we don't have the ability to raise prices like a business can and pass that on to the consumer. The consumer is our payer.
Yeah, well, my concern is too, with the cost of oil, and we're assuming it's gonna go up, but it may not, it may drop. But some of our elderly taxpayers not having, they're on a fixed income, and just even be thinking about that now, in what ways can we help them look?
Yeah.
The tax collector has been very, very proactive these last few weeks, I think, from the meeting that we had, in identifying that tax program. And we've had some of our citizens that have signed up and are taking advantage of it. And I think, I don't want to misquote, but I think down to Amy, I think it was the last issue of 82 deeds. So I think we've done a pretty good job of
Yeah.
at least addressing it in terms of this year. But, yeah, I mean, as it goes up, I mean, it's gonna have an impact on people, whether low income or fixed income. I know people use the word fixed income and they think of seniors, but if you have a job that pays you $15 an hour, you're on a fixed income. That's $15 an hour, so,
That's right.
you know, so it can affect a lot of people. And, but it seems that you've been a community that
Yeah,
has been willing to work.
just going over some things, I mean, the senior citizen that got $1,500 last year in fuel assistance, if the prices stay like they are, that's one tank of oil.
Yeah.
Whether the government, state does something different, we're not sure, but we have to be looking at that.
I mean, knock on wood, if you look, you know, in terms of budget, I mean, the one area that we're not being slammed on so far this year is welfare. And I'll say that, and the door's open tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, we prepared for worst case scenario, and so it's a much higher number, but, you know, depending on, you know, what that impact is, at least we know we have some room there for assistance in reference to housing, to heating, to electrical, and to utilities. And I think we properly budgeted, and so far we're fortunate that we haven't seen a big spike in that yet.
So I'm looking for a motion to accept the budget.
I don't know if we just
We
want
need
that we reviewed it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, I mean, this is more of an information, I mean, if
Yeah.
you want to just do a motion, we accept the April budget report.
To make that motion.
Okay.
Okay, Terry,
second.
Then a second?
Yeah.
Okay.
All those in favor? All right.
Aye. Yeah, thank you for your hard work on that,
Yeah.
Jim. I know that's.
That's a lot of numbers to have to
No,
deal with.
you know what, it's not me, you have 87 people that work on this, okay? I mean, 2 directors back here, you know, Vicki, you know, Lori, you know, everybody is aware of what's going on, we're aware in our personal lives. So, I mean, we know it in terms of the impact, in terms of theirs. So, and I will say it again, I'm very fortunate to have come in and to be able to work with the people that you had here in place. You're in good hands. So I can be interchangeable, and you've got some good people that
I'm
are.
fortunate to have you.
Yeah. So anyway, I give credit to those folks. Without them, I couldn't do what I do.
Okay, board of selectmen topics? None?
I do,
Okay.
actually. Just got a few things. I
Yeah.
want to remind us, of course, Memorial Day processional
Yeah,
is this coming Monday at, I talked to Don Butson again today, and he said he'd like us there around 11. And then we'll line up probably like 11:20-ish, and then we'll head down to the bridge. He said if it's raining or thundering and lightning, we will go up to the VFW.
and it's not supposed to.
No, it's supposed to be nice.
Supposed to be nice.
So that's one thing. And then,
we meet down at the fire station. They're also having a breakfast on Monday morning.
and then the thing with the VFW after.
We as a board, I want to thank the DPW too for doing an awesome job on the crosswalk painting. Everything looks fresh, ready for the summer season, and also thanking the EMS and fire department for doing a beautiful job on the Pollyanna Gateway. And they did that on their own time, and got families involved, and it was really nice to see, and it's just beautiful, updating that.
Thank you.
The other thing too, and this is something that's coming out of Bethlehem, but I feel, and I'm not quite sure how we would get involved at this point, but in 2024, there is a solar eclipse.
Yeah.
And the area, we will be prime. So, Bethlehem has taken a real aggressive
And I
lead.
have signed that to Caitlin and Adam.
Perfect. So I think.
Falls into Parks and Rec and Cultural Arts.
It does.
So I sent that on to them, and we'll be meeting with them at staff tomorrow,
Yeah.
and encouraging one, if not both of them, to attend that meeting in Bethlehem.
So, yeah, it's on June 21st, and they're encouraging town officials too,
Okay.
if we want to go. And we're getting ahead of it to really.
I mean, it's planning, I think, I don't know if it was Colorado or Arizona or somewhere, there was a part of the country that the last one had one of these, and they were like farmers, that it actually marked off their fields with tent sites and rented. I mean, so, depending upon, that issue, it could attract a lot of people, especially here in the north with the mountains, and you don't have light pollution, you don't have all the, towns, city stuff, so it could be a big draw that April of 2024.
Yeah, they're expecting that. But I'm just thinking as a select board too, what can we do? Obviously, Parks and Rec, being involved with it, and Adam, but what can we do as a select board to even support Bethlehem in this? Because they are taking the lead on it, so.
What we can do for you is, one, by having staff there, the town's being active, and then we can make sure that you're fully communicated with, and if there's, definitely ways, from resolutions to proclamations to even active committees or things that they want on, then we can do that. And I think this is kind of a start meeting, to see what's there, so let's get some of that filtered out for you, and then we'll make sure that you're up to date on every option.
When in April is that supposed to be?
It's April's 2024.
I have it on my calendar. I want to say it's like April 8th or something like that. Is it on?
So it's going to be a crapshoot to see what kind of weather we have on April 8th. Whether we have a snowstorm or not.
April 8th,
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah.
So, but I'm also thinking, how can we support our restaurants? How can we support lodging? Because if we have a huge, even safety, that's going to be, we've got to work really close here. If we have, as they say, an influx of, they're planning, tens of thousands of people potentially. Hopefully it won't be a cloudy night. But we
all may be renting out our houses.
So I guess I'm just thinking to be ahead of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the only last thing, and then I'll leave it. A few weeks ago at one of the last meetings, I had mentioned about attending a Senate session, and they opened up in prayer. I brought it up. He said that we would think about it, opening up our select board meetings with prayer. And I didn't know if we have more discussion about this. I know that there's a protocol that we have to do it legally, whatever that means. But I would be willing to take the lead on that, to line people up, to open up in prayer on our select board meetings. But I'm only one voice too, so
Milt had a good point on that you got to include everybody. I guess I don't have a problem with it. If you take the lead on it,
I don't have a problem with it, except for the fact that we do have to include everybody. That's where I have a problem with it.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people would.
I mean, I think it is a great idea. I mean, our United States Senate, that we have a National Day of Prayer. I think it's worth exploring. But I would explore it with a great deal of
So-
caution.
How do they do it? Do they open it up to everybody?
Good question, good question. I know the day I was there, it was a gentleman dressed in cloth. So I don't know if he was like from the Congregational Church or Methodist Church or,
Okay.
that I'm not
He was
sure.
in
asked?
robes.
You
Was he in a robe or?
No,
No.
no, just regular clothes,
Okay.
just, he
He
had
had a collar.
Yeah, like a
He could have
collar,
been Episcopalian possibly,
yeah.
because I know they were collars.
But I think what was neat about it is here it is at the state level and, prayer before the session opened. And the way he prayed, it was that God would give peace to not only the session, but to our nation. That just really struck me that, sometimes we have the contentions and there are so many things going on that it would be, I don't know, I just think it would be something, I would like to see us do it at the town level on even the AHEAD meeting, the annual meeting the other night, they opened in prayer. And a lot of the meetings, they're doing that. I obviously I can't do it on my own, but if you approve and we vote on it, I would start just lining up people, look into the law,
Yeah.
and then start lining up people. I just don't know if we could go across the board, because I don't know if we have atheist ministers up here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean,
But if one shows up,
mhm.
are you ready for
Right.
Yeah, and we would have to get it lined up. We could do, open it up, offer it up, to even lay people. It doesn't necessarily even have to be a pastor or a minister. There could be lay people, like trying to think, like maybe a deacon or I know we're going down new territory.
Yeah,
But I guess
yes.
like at the state level, if they're doing it, then we used to open up our Chamber of Commerce annual dinners with prayer. That got stopped.
And you kind of wonder if we'll make, front page of the paper because
Oh,
a couple of people in
yeah.
the audience weren't happy with whatever religion was doing the prayer tonight and walked out. And you could get into that kind of thing that would be controversy and then we'd have to explain ourselves and.
If we set it up ahead of time though and let them know, they're doing this at the state level. And, I mean, I guess it's one of those things too, I'd want to go into it with both feet
Yeah.
so that we're committed to it and we don't just drop it after 3 months, 4 months. I mean, I think we need all the help we can get.
Absolutely.
I smiled, not in fun, but knowing that
Yeah.
you were just thinking of what's going on.
Yeah.
I have no problem with it as long as we don't get any backlash. And I don't, that's why I'm asking how the state level does it. Do the atheists come in on the
Yeah.
state level? And, is everybody happy?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I only had just a snippet of it that time I attended the session, but it was, for me, it was refreshing, but
Right.
not everybody may.
But at this point, what you want to do is do the research on it first.
And then start lining up.
I mean, can you research it and come back to us saying this is how the state does it and it works on the level?
Sure.
That type of thing?
And I think I'd like to see the specific law as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I know what you're saying, Linda, as far as having, it's kind of,
You have to allow, you have to allow Littleton, as well as a Catholic or Episcopal.
not if we didn't line them up. All right,
Okay.
I'll look into that.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
and I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Then I promise you, I will not bother you with it again. But if we go forward, I will line up those that can do it.
Okay.
That's fine. That's getting good.
All right. I think that's all I have. That's
Okay.
probably enough.
And we have an easy one tonight. Public comment?
I haven't brought in this budget report.
Okay. Board of Assessors, nothing there.
No?
So I guess I'm looking for a motion.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned at 6:16.
Thank you.